My brother banned me from his wedding, until his bride exposed his secret at the altar. They say blood is thicker than water, but that was never true in my family. My older brother, Ryan, always saw me as competition, never as kin. Growing up, he made it his mission to outshine me in everything: grades, sports, attention. And when I finally found peace and success on my own terms, he made sure to remind me that I'd always be second best. So, when I heard he was getting married, I expected at least a formal invitation, maybe a cold smile, but not what I got. He banned me. Not just from the wedding, but from the entire event, blocked me from the guest list, told relatives I was unstable, said I had a history of ruining moments, and needed to be kept away to preserve the joy. My own brother. The man I once stayed up with in the hospital when he broke his leg in high school, the man I covered for when he crashed Dad's car, the same man who once cried on my shoulder after his first heartbreak. Now he was marrying the woman he claimed was his everything, Elena, and I was the threat he had to eliminate. I stayed quiet, didn't fight, didn't cause drama. But then, the morning of the wedding, something strange happened. Elena texted me. I hadn't spoken to her much before, only once or twice during family gatherings. But now, just hours before walking down the aisle, she sent a single message. Please come. I need you there. You deserve to hear this in person. My heart dropped. What could she possibly mean? I didn't respond right away. I stared at the message, confused and a little afraid. Then, 20 minutes later, she followed up with, Your brother's been lying. I know everything now. I dressed in silence. My hands trembled as I buttoned my shirt. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even know if I'd be allowed in. But I went. And when I arrived at the venue, I was surprised no one stopped me. In fact, someone at the door smiled and said, She said you'd come. I took a seat at the very back. The room was already buzzing, flowers everywhere, guests whispering. Ryan looked flawless in his tux, smiling like he had everything under control. But Elena's eyes told a different story. When the priest asked if anyone had any objections, the room held its breath. But Elena didn't wait for anyone else to speak. She stepped forward, turned to face the crowd, and said, Before I say, I do, there's something I need to confess. Not about me, but about the man standing next to me. You could hear a pin drop. Ryan's smile twitched for a second, but he quickly masked it. He reached for her hand, whispering something under his breath, but she pulled away, her eyes locked on mine. Ryan didn't want his brother here today, she continued, voice shaking but strong, because he was afraid this truth would come out. He told me he cut him off because of drama, that he was unstable, that he couldn't be trusted. She turned slowly to Ryan. But the truth is, your brother is the only person in your family with a conscience. The only person who didn't lie, cheat, and manipulate people to get ahead. Gasps echoed. Ryan's jaw tightened. He tried to laugh it off, saying, Okay, Elena, that's enough. We can talk about this later. No, Ryan, she snapped, her voice louder now. You didn't want him here because I found the messages. The ones you sent to my sister, behind my back. The ones where you said you wished you'd proposed to her instead. A woman from the front row suddenly stood up, a woman I hadn't even noticed before. It was Elena's younger sister, Naomi. Her face was pale, her eyes glossy with tears, and every guest turned to stare as she slowly backed away from the pew and whispered, I told you to stop messaging me. I begged you not to do this. Ryan stepped forward, desperation in his voice. Naomi, please. You know it was just talk. I was confused. Elena cut in. No, Ryan. You weren't confused. You were planning a second life. You booked a hotel with her the night before our engagement party. I know because I checked your card history, and I saw the hotel security footage. You weren't even smart enough to delete your tracks. The guests erupted in murmurs. Some stood up. Others pulled out their phones. Ryan's parents looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. But Elena wasn't done. She turned to the priest. This wedding is over. Then she turned to me. And to the only person in this room who never lied to me, thank you. For showing up even when you were hurt. For not exposing your brother when you could've. For giving me the space to find out the truth myself. My throat tightened. I didn't expect any of it. I had come with questions, but I never imagined this level of betrayal would unfold. Ryan tried one last time. Elena, don't do this. You're embarrassing yourself. But before he could finish, Naomi turned around and said something that froze the entire room. Tell them about the baby, Ryan. Or should I? You could feel the air get sucked out of the room. Ryan's mouth parted, but no sound came out. His face turned ghost white as he looked between Elena and Naomi, completely exposed. What baby? Someone whispered in the crowd. Elena stepped back, confused. What? What is she talking about, Ryan? Naomi's hands were trembling, her voice barely above a whisper now, but still sharp enough to slice through the silence. I was going to keep it quiet. I was going to handle it myself. But he begged me not to tell anyone. He said it would ruin his future, his image, his plans. She looked directly at Elena. Your fiancé got me pregnant. The entire room exploded. Guests stood up shouting, some backing away in shock, some recording. Ryan's mother let out a loud gasp and nearly fainted, clinging to one of the chairs. His father just stood there, stunned, eyes locked on the scene unraveling in front of him. Ryan finally snapped, turning to Naomi, voice laced with panic. You said you took care of it. You said it was done. Naomi's lips quivered. I lied, just like you did. It's yours, and I have proof. Elena stumbled back a step, eyes wide, her hand covering her mouth like she might be sick. You got my sister pregnant while planning a wedding with me? Ryan's desperation turned to anger. This is insane. You both set me up. You're trying to ruin me. I stood up from the back, unable to stay silent any longer. No, Ryan, you ruined yourself. My voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You lied, manipulated everyone, banned me to keep your secret safe. But truth has a way of crawling out, even when you bury it deep. Elena walked slowly toward me, her wedding gown trailing like a storm cloud behind her. Come with me, she said quietly. I don't want to face these people alone. Not anymore. And just like that, she left her own wedding, arm in arm with a man her fiancé tried to erase. Ryan stood at the altar, abandoned, exposed, and surrounded by whispers that would follow him for the rest of his life. But the story didn't end there. Because what none of them knew, not even Elena, was that I had been holding on to a secret too. One that could burn the last bridge Ryan had left standing. One that could burn the last bridge Ryan had left standing. We stepped outside the venue, Elena still trembling, Naomi surrounded by murmuring relatives, and Ryan frozen like a statue in his shame. But as we walked through the parking lot, I felt the weight of the secret I had been carrying for months press heavier against my chest. I had stayed silent for too long. I turned to Elena and said, There's something else you need to know. Something no one else knows. Not even Naomi. She stopped, her brows furrowed, bracing herself. A few months ago, I got a message from someone. A girl who said she had been in contact with Ryan online. She thought he was single. They had been talking for almost a year. Sexting. Video calls. He told her he worked late because of family obligations, but what he really meant was you. Elena blinked, trying to keep herself steady. I continued. At first, I thought it was just a scam. But she sent me screenshots, messages, voicemails. I confronted Ryan privately. He begged me to stay quiet, said it was a mistake, that it meant nothing, that it would never happen again. But he never apologized to you. Just asked me to protect his image. She stared at me, her face hardening, the hurt in her eyes boiling into rage. So he cheated on me with my sister and another woman online? I nodded slowly, and then turned around and made me the problem when I said I wouldn't lie for him. Elena took a deep breath, then laughed bitterly. He said you were jealous, that you wanted to ruin his wedding because you hated that he was happy. But you were just trying to protect me. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The damage was done. And just when we thought it couldn't go any further, Naomi came out of the venue and whispered, barely audible. Ryan knew about the pregnancy long before the engagement. He told me to keep it because he wanted a backup, in case the wedding didn't work. Elena stared at her sister, jaw tightening. A backup? Like a spare tire? Naomi nodded tearfully. He said he couldn't lose your father's support, that he needed the marriage to lock in the business deal. But if you ever backed out, he'd just pivot. His words, not mine. Elena took a deep breath. Then she turned back toward the wedding hall, not to go back to him, but for one final act of closure. She walked right in, straight down the aisle, past all the shocked guests who were still frozen in disbelief, and she picked up the microphone from the priest's podium. And what she said next would make sure Ryan never showed his face in that town again. The wedding was called off. The guests scattered like ashes, carrying whispers that would echo through every family gathering and business circle Ryan once proudly dominated. Within 48 hours, the story had spread, not just among relatives, but through the community, the church, even local blogs. Videos from the altar went viral. Screenshots of his messages were leaked. And every door that had once opened for him slammed shut. His job, which was tied to Elena's father's company, gone. The business deal that was supposed to launch him into elite society, withdrawn. And Naomi, she cut him off completely, blocked him, changed her number. She chose to raise the baby on her own, far away from Ryan's manipulation. But while Ryan's world collapsed, something unexpected happened between me and Elena. We stayed in touch, at first through short messages, just checking in, and then longer calls, late into the night, where she'd cry, laugh, vent, heal. We were two people he tried to erase, now rebuilding ourselves from the ashes he left behind. One day, she invited me over. Just a quiet evening, no drama, no talk of Ryan. She cooked. I brought wine. And for the first time in years, we laughed. Real, unforced laughter. The kind that leaves your chest lighter. You know, she said softly, if Ryan hadn't banned you from the wedding, I might have married him. I nodded slowly. If he hadn't banned me, you might never have found out the truth. She looked at me, her eyes softer than they'd ever been, and said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the person they try hardest to push away is the only one who was ever on your side. We didn't label what was happening between us. Not at first. It was too raw, too new. But over time, we found comfort in the space we shared. Dinners turned into routines. Laughter turned into trust. And one night, as the rain hit the windows and the world felt still for once, she rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for showing up, even when it hurt." And I realized, Ryan lost everything because of the lies he built his life on. But I, the brother he tried to erase, walked away with everything he pretended to have. Because sometimes karma doesn't shout. It walks in silently, holding the hand of the woman he never deserved. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.